to get home from school so I can get online and talk with my boyfriend.
The video that was just shown on screen was an animation by the 23-year-old animator GuvKDF. They overlaid screenshots were all real messages sent by Gov, most of which being aimed at his underage audience. More context will be provided to every screenshot throughout this video. I am not a commentary YouTuber, I am an animator. And due to my inexperience, the structure of this video may be hard to follow and my microphone isn't exactly the best quality, so I'm genuinely sorry about that. I hope the captions help. This video will be going over the controversial and dangerous actions of the animator GuvKDF and aims to spread awareness about his inappropriate and immature behaviour towards his underage audience. Before anyone gets confused, because I know they will, I want to clarify that me and GuvKDF are not the same person. We may have similar animation styles, but GuvKDF and me, Ducky Duck Truck, are different people. Gov was 22 to 23 throughout the situation, and I was 16 to 17 years old. If you happen to know who I am outside of this video, then you'll know I was supposed to be on a very long hiatus/break. The only reason I'm even making this video in the first place is because direct victims of the animated GuvKDF have come forward to tell me about their experiences with GuvKDF and his uncomfortable actions, which includes, but is not limited to, faking a coma, faking his identity during said coma, making a joke towards minors in a private group chat whilst under that fake identity, asking to tip more a 13-year-old girl, asking a minor for the rest, multiple in fact, pressuring a minor for a photo of themselves, stalking / obsessing over a minor, asking a minor for the IMEI number, which would allow him to access their location and details, homophobia, and grooming. I want to clarify that it's not grooming, it's emotional grooming, which could become left unchecked. Nobody knows if Gov is intentionally doing this or not, only Gov does. Either way, it's an abusive dynamic which endangers and causes psychological damage to these children. It's even caused physical damage, as some of them have harmed. There were also a variety of actions which I came across in his old Discord server, a Discord server which is now inaccessible. I have luckily saved screenshots of his concerning actions, and I will be going over these later. These screenshots include him guilt-tripping minors, threatening to children as a response to events or misbehavior, inappropriate reactions to serious topics such as inappropriate boundaries of minors, as well as other things. Keep it in mind that Gov was 22 to 23 years old in all of these screenshots. Some of his fans in his Discord server were as young as 10 years old. A 10-year-old, to put it in perspective, is born in 2015 to 2016. I've personally had my suspicions about Gov for as long as summer 2025, which is why I even have these screenshots in the first place. I never ended up speaking up due to the fear of not being taken seriously, as I believed I didn't have enough evidence to prove that he was a genuine danger to his audience. Or so I have a crucial problem with overthinking, which added to that. To add to this even more so, when I confronted Gov, he further gaslit me and guilt-tripped me into not saying anything. And in all honesty, he came across as kind of mentally immature, and I felt bad for him. I mistakenly gave him the benefit of the doubt. Or so Gov supposedly has a heart condition where if he receives enough stress, he can die on the spot. Obviously, I didn't want to kill him by accident, especially over something which I believed wasn't that big of a deal. But now I have high suspicions that his heart condition isn't true, given his dodgy medical history and compulsive lying about things such as his coma. I want to add that I'm not doing this for any monetary gain or attention. I mean, for starters, I'm not even monetized, and second of all, I don't care about getting attention on the internet anymore. I've been in a hiatus for the past 2 months, and I was supposed to continue it for years, which I'm probably going to do after this video is dropped. I have no intention to gain any money from this. I do not care about the money, and I never have. I have no intention to ruin Gov's life. This is merely an informative video, which I feel obligated to make. Gov has changed some of his actions, but some of his actions just need to be talked about. I don't want to sweep this under the rug and let him get away and possibly do this to more children. I probably would have left this situation alone entirely if I wasn't reached out to personally by some of his fans. Some of his friends. GuvKDF, also known as Governor Bostaman or GKDF Gang on YouTube, is a 23-year-old animator born on the 7th of December 2002. You may know who he is from his animation memes and Roblox videos. I personally found out about him from comments saying that mine and his animation styles are similar, as they both use all light motion shapes. Gov's character is a red and black blocky figure that he chooses to represent himself as. It's important to note that Gov claims that his character's lore is reflective of his real-life experiences, and that some of the characters in his videos are supposedly based on real living people. These real-life people include Knox, his supposedly real abusive brother, which for whatever reason he makes first traps of, Dude, Gov's IRL friend, who during Gov's supposed coma took his phone and managed it for him, as well as for some reason, making artwork in a very similar art style on Gov's phone, as well as having an incredibly similar typing style. There is also Dude's girlfriend, but she isn't as important to this video. From his old YouTube bio, he claims that he is characteristically kind, easy to use, weak, and a crybaby and cringe. He uses these attributes to garner sympathy and attention from his audience, which is what a third of his content revolves around. I don't want to waste the first half of this video talking about less important subjects, such as Gov's supposed water allergy. For context, Gov claims that he's one of 100 people in the history of medicine to ever have aquagenic urticaria, which is the fancy way of saying water allergy. His water allergy specifically is so severe that he can't even drink water, which is not how aquagenic urticaria works in most cases. In most cases of aquagenic urticaria, most people affected are just sensitive to water on their skin. They can drink it just fine, they just can't get on their skin, except for a handful of extremely rare cases. This shows that Gov is either exaggerating his illness for the sake of sympathy, or he is one of the rarest people in all of planet Earth. I mean, as you can see here, he says that he doesn't drink water, he drinks milk, which is... That just says everything, doesn't it? Anyways, I'm going to be getting on to the actual important bits of the video, because this is fairly lighthearted compared to some of the more horrible stuff that Gov has done. This next section will be going over my conversation with the victims. January 19th of this year was when I received these messages from a girl which I'll be referring to as Purple. Purple asked to discuss something with me, something involving Gov. I had a feeling of what it was going to be and my heart sank. I accepted the invite and was invited to a group chat containing 3 minors which I'll be color coding as I want to conceal their real identity. Purple is 13, Blue is also 13, and Yellow is 14. They came to me to discuss what had happened between them and Gov during their friendship, which has lasted more than a year now. They also wanted to discuss Gov's coma as they believed that he was faking it. I think the reason why they chose to reach out to me, even though I'm not a commentary YouTuber, is because I have vocalized concerns about Gov in the past already. This was done for a community post where I reflected on my past mistakes of venting too publicly from the ages of 15 to 16 years old. I remember seeing Gov's weird, guilt-trippy behavior, and I was really worried at the time that I may be doing something similar, as I used to beat myself up for not reaching deadlines. A few hours after I posted this community post, it ended up being posted in Gov's server by a 17, now 18-year-old Russian after Gov announced to be taking a break so suddenly after I joined the server. I've come to realize that the community post probably wasn't the most mature way of going about the situation, and I'm genuinely sorry about that. Of course, the community post wasn't the reason why Gov went on a break. Maybe it was part of the reason, but the main reason why he went on a break was because I confronted him and I told him about his bad actions and I told him to see a psychologist. I think another reason why these victims chose to reach out to me was because in the past, Purple had to comfort Gov after he vented about me confronting him, as that was really traumatic for the 24-year-old man. The conversation about Gov started off with Purple adding me to a group chat, stating that they needed to explain the situation and that they didn't know where to start. Their friend Yellow went to go gather some screenshots while Purple explained the situation. Purple explains that her, Blue, Yellow, and Gov had all been friends for more than a year. To clarify again, both Purple and Blue are 13, whilst Yellow is 14 and Gov is 23, something which Gov knows and addresses at multiple points. At the time of these messages, Gov was supposedly in a coma, something which the group and myself have been suspicious of for quite a while. Another thing to add is that at the time of these messages, Gov's friend Dude was supposedly running his account. Purple explained how Gov and Dude have incredibly similar art styles, typos, ways of writing, etc. This is why she and the others believe that Gov had been faking his coma and that Dude isn't a real person. Here are some examples: the yellow set of Dude's art. And here are some examples of Gov's art. All look similar, don't they? Only difference is the rendering and mild art style changes. Personally had this suspicion for a while. A week or two before this happened, I was in contact with Dude on Gov's account, and I noticed a similar typing style. Actually, here's a comparison between Gov and Dude's messages. It's impossible to tell that these were sent by different people. Surely if someone was managing their friend's account, A, they would have different typing styles, and B, they wouldn't be starting drama with me in Gov's DMs. Yellow also sent screenshots of these three confronting Dude in a private group chat about this all. They all sent their messages before adding him to the group chat. Purple opens up the group chat by explaining to Dude that the three need to talk to him about something. She informs him that it's pretty serious and that she would really like him to be completely honest in his answers. She then goes on to the main point, which is that the group believes that Gov and Dude are the same person and have actually been lying to them the whole time. The three then proceed to list off their reasoning. For example, Yellow mentions how the art style is literally the same, except the rendering. Blue then proceeds to make an excellent point, which I'll read out.
People don't just suddenly adopt someone else's exact style, mistakes, art style, watermarking, typos, phrasing, etc. Those are highly personal. If a real friend were taking over, they'd usually communicate in their own way, or at minimum, they wouldn't keep the watermark unless they were explicitly asked to credit the original artist.
I assume the last part of that statement is referring to how, despite being in a coma, Gov still managed to post videos. Dude claimed that these were old Gov videos that he was posting for him while he was in a coma. Very likely unbelievable. Purple uses an example, which is when Dude told his girlfriend to draw something, and it was exactly the same art style except with different pens, tools, and slightly different methods. Here's the art that Purple was referring to. Yellow adds that the character models used in Gov's new videos were made 1 to 2 days before Gov fell in a coma. It'd be unlikely that he would be able to make 2 whole videos in that time frame and then have Dude post them while he was in a coma. Blue then adds to their previous point.
A coma is a serious scenario, and serious scenarios usually come with serious behavior. If someone was actually dealing with a friend in a coma, they won't just hop online in the same tone, same mannerisms, and continue producing art in an identical way. They tend to be withdrawn, worried, or at least acting different. The inconsistency here points towards a story, not a crisis.
Purple adds onto Yellow's previous point about the character models that were fresh made,
Gov only recently started making 3D looking models for Oz,
which is this thing here.
He showed us that a few days ago before he got in a coma. How could he have made more when he didn't even show us? Gov would have showed us this as he is really proud of the things that he makes.
In case you didn't quite understand that, basically Purple is saying that if Gov was to have made this 3D model outside of the coma, he would have showed this entire group already, because as soon as he makes something, it's posted in his Discord or it's posted in his friend group. This is a thing that he does a lot. They send the video as an example, and they go on about how the audio used in the video is relatively new or trendy. If you make YouTube shorts or animation memes, there will always be like trending audios that you follow in order to get likes and views, and this is a trend that came out after Gov was in a coma. So how did he know? Did he predict this? Is he the starter of this trend? No, he's a liar, that's what. Here's the video. As you can see, nothing can stop Gov from grinding for those 200 likes, not even a coma. An interesting thing that Purple says is that
Gov can never know about the trend unless Oz told him.
They then bring up Oz as their next point. I was curious to what this Oz thing was, so I asked Purple to give me an explanation and a rundown, which they did. Let me read it out.
Gov told us some time ago that this thing Oz talked to him in his head, and he said that at first he thought he was God, but Oz didn't like that. He said Oz gave him bad and he did things that aren't right and stuff. It got worse and worse as he started saying that Oz could manipulate atoms and physically change him, etc. He said that Oz sometimes prevented him from fainting. He tried consulting a doctor, his words, I don't know if it's true. Left with no update on the situation whatsoever. It really messed up with my, Yellow, and Blue's mental health, as we would always worry about him because we believed that. One time Gov was really panicked because of a situation, saying that he knew this would be his final fate and that he wouldn't wake up, that he was glad he got to know me. This seriously messed with me. I had to pretend in front of Yellow and Blue that he was just sleeping early because I didn't know what to say. I'm telling you all this because I'm seriously done with his lies. He keeps insisting that it's true, but I'm not believing this anymore, and I feel insanely stupid and dumb for ever believing that. I started to feel bad for wanting him exposed yesterday, but after talking with him, I'm seriously done now. I'm not falling for the guilt tripping anymore. I'm honestly scared, and I wouldn't be surprised if this leaves scars on my ability to trust people in general.
It's also important to add that Gov would vent to Purple privately about Oz and would be scared to talk about him to anyone else. He would put all of his trust and pressure on Purple, a 13-year-old girl. A pressure which doesn't exactly exist. This is a trait of will do this tactic where they isolate and keep secrets of the victims. This doesn't necessarily have to be a secret, but it's damaging nonetheless. Purple herself stated that it's even left scars in her ability to trust people in general. Also, Blue mentioned how this kind of thing made them uncomfortable. I've noticed that Gov has this weird tendency to force people, especially who are more impressionable, into his weird made-up fantasy land where he's the victim and is constantly suffering and desperate of attention. There's nothing wrong with having OCs or a story that you're invested in. The problem is when you treat it as real and force others into it, especially when they're you know will fully trust you and believe you. Okay, so as I was editing this video, Purple provided me with some extra screenshots with the type of shit that Gov was saying to her, and it is genuinely sickening, and it really does emphasize how much pressure that she was under because of him. Some of her responses are going to be censored out as she feels ashamed and guilty about them. She valued Gov as a very close friend. Here are the screenshots. I'm not going to be reading them out because they are very personal. Purple is obviously in a very extreme amount of distress. I've been in similar situations before, and it is a gut-wrenching feeling. It is a horrible, horrible feeling. To think that someone that you love and care about is going to die is one of the most gut-wrenching feelings I believe that someone can go through. The fact that Gov willingly chose to put this girl, someone who is vulnerable, someone who depends on him and believes him fully, someone who trusted him, someone who he considered his friend. The fact that Gov put this little girl through such a severe amount of distress over something that isn't real shows that not only is he a danger to his fans and those close to him, but he is incredibly immature and disturbed mentally. It genuinely makes me angry, because this kind of thing sticks with you. And I've learned over the course of talking to these victims and going over the situation that if you don't speak up about something that feels wrong, even if it's a tiny bit, it can escalate behind the scenes. Gov preys on benefit of the doubt. He preys on people just dismissing him as, oh, he's just mentally younger, he doesn't mean it, or, oh, he just seems a little bit ill. That kind of dismissal, although sympathetic, is dangerous, because if I hadn't looked into this further, Gov would have continued doing this to other teenagers, and these girls who contacted me, they never would have got their story out otherwise. If there's anything to take away from this video, it's that you should speak up if something feels weird. If you notice someone who is doing weird behavior, you should talk about it. You should talk to your friends about it. You should talk to your family about it. You should make it known. And if someone is being weird to you, you should talk about it as well. Because no matter how insignificant it feels to you, you have no idea how bad it actually is until you speak up about it. I'm going to be showing something which I was meant to show later in the video, as there's going to be a whole section on but I'm going to be showing it now because not everyone is going to watch the video fully. Also, Purple sent this screenshot at the same time, and seeing all these screenshots together like this really does show how much of a groomer Gov is.
Like sugar on my tongue, tongue, tongue. Your body is so sweet, sweet, sweet. Invite me if you come, come, come. It's all I want to eat, eat, eat.
Purple continues the conversation in the group chat by saying that they all feel lied to and played. She goes on about how they've been worrying about Gov's death for literal weeks, and Yellow adds how it feels like an unfunny joke. Purple also adds that she had to pretend to act normal in front of her friends Blue and Yellow whilst internally panicking about Gov and his safety. As you can see here, Purple questions Gov's age due to his severe immaturity. You may remember how earlier Purple mentioned that Gov is apparently 23. This is because they came to the conclusion that Gov was faking his age due to his immature personality and frequent referring to these kids as more mature than him, which is a really creepy thing to say, given that he's 23. I've spoken to all three of these girls, and from what I've seen, they all act 13, they all act their age. They are 13-year-olds, and they act like 13-year-olds. I personally do not believe that Gov's a child. I believe that Gov pretends to act younger and more innocent than he actually is. He does this to relate to his fans and have them be sympathetic towards him. He often describes himself as tiny and pathetic, his old YouTube bio, as you saw before, describing him as a crybaby that's easy to use. Even if Gov is mentally immature, that doesn't excuse him from accountability. He is still an adult man and he can still cause damage. Mental illness or mental immaturity is an explanation, it's not an excuse, and if Gov cannot take that accountability, then he shouldn't be be around young, impressionable teenagers. Gov can admit that he's made a mistake, but he does it in such a way that you have to feel bad for him. He never tells the full story, and he's incredibly guilt-trippy, which is why, despite his past self-reports, I've decided to post this video. I personally do not think that Gov is a good person, and neither do I think that he should be around anyone that's under the age of 18. I personally believe that one of the reasons why Gov goes after kids to feed his ego is because they're naive and less likely to question his obviously weird made-up storyline about himself. Not to mention that in the past, Gov, who is 23, has asked to meet up with Purple. He is a grown man with the mental capacity to complexly animate, track a phone, as well as supposedly going to a college. If Gov has the mental capacity to do all of that, then he has the mental capacity to understand that asking for a address isn't an okay thing for him to say as a grown man, even as a joke. And if Gov doesn't see a problem with that, then he shouldn't be around. End of story. More about this later. To continue with the group chat, Purple adds that Gov is always worried about his reputation and looking like a only for Dude to take a hold of his account and make it to a bunch of kids, which, despite its joking nature, is still inappropriate considering everyone there was under 18, and this easily could have escalated over time if Gov was in court pretending to be Dude. Blue then goes on to talk about their discomfort with Gov's pretend role plays in scenarios, etc., which I'd highly recommend that you pause and read. Yellow goes on to explain how Gov is lucky they're being lenient on him, and Purple added how they could make a whole YouTube video just on his actions alone, and that if they felt they needed to, they would contact Ducky, which is me. And as you can see, they unfortunately needed to contact me. About 1 hour after sending these messages, Dude responded to the group chat. He acted confused as if he didn't know what they were talking about and proceeded to defend Gov on some of the points. Points which he would have no knowledge about, such as the animation meme trend song thing. It doesn't seem likely to me that Gov's random friend from college would have any knowledge on animation meme trends or the age of the song in Gov's videos. That seems like something that only Gov would really know, as he's the one making the animations, not Dude. But I could always be overthinking this. Dude then proceeded to claim that Gov was in a coma, but he happened to wake up and just needs to rest. This honestly just seems like Gov is trying to cover up what he did, because he knows he's been caught and there's no getting out of it now. When Gov is caught for doing something, he always tries to cushion the extent of his fault. When confronted, Gov will sometimes admit to doing something, but he'll always try and cushion or lie about his intentions or make it seem less bad than what he actually did. For example, in the past, I confronted him about saying weird things to minors in his server and having inappropriate relations and friendships and boundaries with them, and his excuse was that he didn't know any better and that he was mentally younger. Back to the group chat, Dude says that Gov said that he doesn't want these kids to tell anyone that he's back from the coma. Purple then proceeds to say that Gov made her think that he died and then came back because of Oz. And then she went on about how she was forced to handle this all by herself and lie to Yellow and Blue that he was just sleeping. Dude acts all surprised like he doesn't know what she's talking about. The fact that Gov would knowingly put her through this whole idea that he was dead, while supposedly also going through that himself, is really fucking sickening. Gov should not only understand the sheer emotional toll that it takes on you, but also the gut-wrenching feeling that comes with it when you realize that it was a load of bullshit and you were upset for no reason. Dude pretends he never knew, and Purple goes on about how she stayed with him the entire time and put up with all his stupid stories and lies. Yellow also adds that Dude should tell Gov that he's lost all of the trust of his friends. Dude proceeds to confess that Gov was only in a coma for 9 days, saying that he was too scared to tell anyone he was back and that's why he was gone. Around this point, Gov had been in a coma for about 2 weeks, I'm pretty sure, so this is like a massive difference. Also, for whatever reason, Dude proceeds to say that he's gonna hit Gov, who's apparently fresh out of a coma. A very realistic thing to do to your friend that's supposedly been in a fucking coma for 9 days. This all seems like a load of crap to me, if I'm gonna be honest. It doesn't make any sense, and I'm 100% convinced that Gov's coma was entirely fabricated to either get attention or to take a break in some weird, I want attention, but I want a break. I don't know what he was doing with this. None of this story makes sense. It's obvious to everyone he's lying. The art styles, the typing style, the inconsistent storyline. I mean, come on. Put yourself in Dude's perspective for a minute. Your mentally ill friend has a heart attack and goes into a coma, a very, very serious thing. Are you A, going to check in on Gov's server every now and again and manage it for him, as you know that he's a YouTuber and it's important? Or are you going to B, do nothing involving his server or his phone and just try and be there for your friend? Or the secret fourth option, C, go to message all of his underage fans and make to them whilst managing his online identity. Also, simultaneously starting arguments with another YouTuber and defending Gov about things that only he would know, while supporting his every action and knowing every intention, even though according to you, you're not that close and shouldn't in theory know any of this or have such a complex understanding of Gov's mind and mental state. And you do all of this while having the exact same typing style to Gov, have the exact same art style except less rendered, and you're more violent. If you chose C, you are correct. And what the fuck? A month ago, Gov did the delightful thing of taking a break from his heart attack-induced coma and wrote a server message about how he's leaving the responsibility of running the server to Yellow. Now, you may argue that he's never mentioned a coma or a heart attack in his announcement, and he could have just been feeling bad before the incident, but if that was the case, why the fuck is his friend's message also in the same announcement with a very similar typing style? Within the time frame of a few minutes, Dude walked to Gov's house and gave him back his phone. and Gov responded. This next section is going to be covering Gov's response to the group chat. After about 4 minutes since Dude's response, Gov returned from his coma, alerting the group chat with an ellipsis. I've already made this point before, but I'm just going to elaborate further. This would mean that within the span of 4 minutes, Dude managed to walk over to Gov's house, inform him about the entire situation, as well as hand his phone over. This is a clear red flag. Back to the group chat, Gov apologizes and attempts to explain his actions, saying that he's sorry, something which the group members don't take well. Yellow states that she's really disappointed and that his apologies won't fix anything. Gov further guilt trips these children by blaming them for his disappearance, explaining that he wanted a break from everything. He excuses this act of selfishness by stating that he also wanted the minors to rest from him, which shows to an extent Gov was aware that he was taking a toll on these kids' mental health, or he's just sympathy baiting. Yellow explains how worried everyone was and that she was praying every day for Gov to wake up. Gov responds by apologizing and calling himself stupid, saying how he didn't know it would be like this and that he shouldn't have made videos. I'm not sure if that's referring to him becoming a YouTuber in the first place or if that's referring to him making videos during his coma, but if it's the latter, then in itself it's a whole nother hole in his story. How would Gov be making animations on the side if Dude has his phone? Yeah, he could have been using his PC, but All-Motion, the animation software he uses, is a mobile app. Also, if he did have a coma for 9 days and then was taking a rest, why the fuck would he be making animation memes? To conclude, it's safe to say that Gov wasn't in a coma, Oz isn't real, Dude isn't real, and Knox, who we'll talk about later, also isn't real. And if Oz is real, then he's a symptom of a severe mental illness. Keep it in mind, Gov is 23 doing this. He isn't some mentally ill 15-year-old, he's a 23-year-old adult male that's old enough to drink alcohol in America as well as get married and have a child. Gov is a 23-year-old man. His friend group is full of 13 to 14-year-old girls. This is creepy. And just because he's mentally ill or mentally young, it doesn't excuse him from accountability and criticism. I've given him 2 chances to change, but he hasn't. Yes, he did change a few things, such as the armed guilt trip stuff, which I'll talk about later, but that was only because he was caught. Imagine what would have happened if he wasn't. He'd still be doing it. This shows that even if Gov isn't doing it intentionally, he's still a danger. If he's too mentally immature to understand that his actions are dangerous and damaging, then he shouldn't be talking to his audience of primarily children. Even if he didn't mean to, he has damaged them, and there is nothing to suggest that he wouldn't have continued if he wasn't confronted. It only gets worse from this point. You may remember that earlier, Purple proceeded to mention how a few months ago, Gov, an adult man, asked for her IMEI number. I mentioned before that an IMEI number would allow Gov to track Purple's device and therefore location, which is especially concerning considering Purple is supposedly his closest online friend and location and that he wants to meet her. At the time of those messages, I didn't know what an IMEI number was. I wanted to focus on the conversation in the group chat, so I asked my partner, Galistrale, to do the research on what an IMEI number was so I could talk to the victims. After researching, me and Gano had a discussion, and we decided that he would help me make some parts of the video as there is a lot to cover. Also, unfortunately, Gano has fallen victim to bad people in the past, which means that he's a lot more capable at recognizing and explaining the patterns of dangerous/bad people, which is why he's covering this topic as well as a few more topics later in this video. This next part will be narrated by Gato, and the research will be by him too.
Hello, Gato Stradale here. I will now go into another one of the things that Gov has done, except that this time it involves the actual online and real life safety of a few underage users that have been at risk and still are at risk, even more so now. Please note that this was done in private DMs, calls and group chats where other users couldn't have intervened to stop Gov, stop him from asking or doing the following actions, which drives me to think that Gov purposely separated the users involved from the original server to do these things. This section of the video is now going to focus on Gov stalking, gathering information and asking minors about private information with evidence. Partner Ducky was contacted by a group of minors of the ages 13 and 14. They then proceeded to expose some private DMs in a group chat that they have with Gov after a year-long friendship. In the span of that friendship, Gov has talked with these minors separately on call and in DMs, I'm guessing. For privacy reasons, I will not be saying the name of the following 13-year-old minor, but I will mark them with the color and name.
Purple.
The other 13-year-old minor will be marked as
blue,
and the 14-year-old involved in this as
yellow.
It's mainly about
purple,
since Gov has been after information and has gotten a hold of it. According to
purple,
a year or so ago, Gov has asked them for their phone's EMAI number. Here's the screenshot of
purple,
telling Ducky what happened. At the time,
purple,
didn't know what the EMAI number did, so they gave it to Gov. What is an EMI though? The abbreviation stands for International Mobile Equipment Identity. What could Gov possibly do with it? The number, which is 15 digits long, is used to identify devices like a smartphone, a tablet, and other mobile devices, and details on the model and the device itself. It also allows you to see the device's warranty period, the original carrier, and the SIM-lock status, and whether the device has been reported stolen or lost. Now, that information itself is already extremely private, and another thing with this is that there is way more that could be found out by a hand that knows what it's doing. There is more information that one can discover, such as location information, country or region, and even tracking of the device's live location is possible, aka the miner's location. Also, if Gov has more personal information, Gov could create a duplicated model of the original device, I'm guessing either digitally or a physical copy, I'm not sure though, and use it to hack into the original device. So, of course, while I was doing research on this, I used Google and YouTube, and after watching a certain YouTube video, I got some more confirmation. This video here just confirms that hacker can access the real-time location as I've said previously. Also, if Gov wanted to, he could report the phone as stolen. Using the number, he could get the phone blacklisted off of global networks as well as just lock the entire device. Well, there's basically a lot of things that he could do to mess with
Purple.
or get in trouble. Though, if the only thing that Gov has access to is the number, chances are that the only thing he can access is the miner's live location as well as other location and phone model information, which is still extremely concerning. In some more screenshots that I've gotten, there's more self-explanatory weird stuff that Gov has requested and asked of these miners. Also, there is confirmation that he does have access to
Purple.
private information. Gov has asked
Yellow.
to know
Yellow.
address, and also asked for a picture of
Purple.
and of course these weird screenshots sent by Gov himself under the name of Dude. This image right here was made by Gov himself. It appears to be a character sheet of an OC by the same name of
Purple.
Of course I've censored all personal data, but there is some concerning stuff in here. Let me zoom into it. Here he pretty much describes a child OC with concerning details, as well as the address and language. This image in specific right here weirds me out quite a bit. You can see what appears to be
Purple.
as an OC being hugged by Gov. Gov has expressed multiple times in the past that he has wanted to care for kids and wished that he had his own, which I believe is a normal want. Just not in this context, especially not in this context. What Gov is doing is disturbing and outright disgusting. He's basically stalking and obsessing on a minor. Making a character and DMing them for a year is not normal. Even if Gov doesn't have any access to his
Purple.
live location and other information, this by itself is weird. Of course we can't know this, since Gov is probably never going to admit to doing any of these things. Interacting for over a year, as I've said previously, with these minors is extremely weird, and it should not have been done by an adult. Now, this is all I have to say for my part. This was Gato Stradale and all the information I've managed to gather and put together.
Hey, this is Ducky, and as I was editing this video, I looked through the weird OC profile again. When I looked through it, I found that Gov also wrote about Purple's unstable family, and about how she doesn't like her mom and she doesn't like making people upset, such as Gov. Regardless if these facts are fictional or not, it's an incredibly weird detail to add on the OC based off of a real child. If it's true, then it shows that she has vented to Gov about her situation in the past, and it's weird that he would choose to add that part of her life into his weird OC thing. One of the tactics that groomers may use is that they will look out for kids who are lonely or have family issues, etc. Now, we obviously don't know if this is Gov's intention or not, but regardless, it is a red flag and it shouldn't be ignored.
Edit. More screenshots have been found. These only confirm the stalking and wanting to meet up claims further, as these screenshots are things that Gov actually said to these minors. Quick reminder, this is an over 20-year-old man asking and saying this stuff to minors as young as 13. Before I dive into the new evidence, I'd like to say that, yes, we don't know Gov's actual intentions, but because we don't know them, it is only more so a factor of worry. He could be generally doing this out of an awareness, which I doubt heavily, or out of even darker intentions for these minors. In the following image on screen, you can see a conversation between
Yellow.
Gov and their DMs. This is all going down 3 months ago, when Ducky was still gathering information and debating on actually making an exposing video. In this screenshot, Gov's way of acting is not only extremely inappropriate towards
yellow,
but also forceful in a way. Tell or I will find by myself, pressuring them into saying the address. Out of my own personal experience, this is a method that these type of people will use. Asking for your address until you give in or get sick of the question and just get it over with. Of course, this is extremely dangerous. We don't know what Gov could do with that, or is planning to do. Yes, this was 3 months ago, but it doesn't change the fact that this 14-year-old's address and school is now in the hands of Gov. Because yes, he asked for the school too. Here you can see Gov asking for the authenticity of the address and school that
yellow,
gave him, followed up by a, maybe I will go to you, but I don't know. This brings us to what the thumbnail showed you. Yes, Gov wants to meet up with these children and possibly kidnap them, and he has expressed it countless of times. Here's a little compilation. Gov has
yellow,
others in school, as well as
purple,
the EMAI number, possible live tracking and address, plus region as well as other information. And he has access to this at any time. This is now confirmed with new screenshots. Before I move on to another thing that Gov has done, and bothers me a lot, I will show you some other weird and disturbing conversations that he has had with
yellow,
and
purple,
this is what Gov said after he
yellow,
revealed their address. But don't worry if you wake up not at home. See, this could be a harmless joke between friends, said to jokingly threaten them, but Gov is not this kid's friend, and an adult cannot be friends with a minor, especially not like this, and this is obviously not in a joking context. Here's the original screenshot of Gov asking
purple,
space. This is the end of the stalking and obsession sector until new updates show up.
The next section goes over Orange, Gov's first known victim. As I was making the script for this video, another person came forward, Purple's friend who I'll be calling Orange. Orange was invited to the group chat as she wanted to talk about her experience with GuvKDF. Orange was one of Gov's first known victims. She started off as a fan of him, similar to the other girls, and then became his friend. Orange was 12 to 13 years old when she was friends with Gov. Due to the trauma, she deleted Discord and has only come back to send evidence of Gov's actions. Her and Purple stayed in contact through Pinterest, which is how Orange learned about the group chat. Similar to Yellow and Purple, Gov also asked for Orange's address, as well as encouraging her to run away from home. Gov claimed that the reason he asked for the address was so that he can call the police on her abusive family. This is the only time where I think Gov could somewhat excuse his actions. However, this is still a dodgy decision. A sensible adult would advise a child in this situation to call the police, call Child Protective Services, or talk to a trusted adult like a teacher. You could argue that Gov did have good intentions for this. However, considering he's asked for other addresses for no good reason, it undermines his action, and we can't be certain if he actually had good intentions with asking. Also, encouraging a 12-year-old to run away from home isn't exactly the smartest thing to do. Gov should be old enough to know that getting her to run away would only put her in more danger in the long run. For example, according to missingchildren.eu, when a child runs away from home, they may end up sleeping outdoors with little access to food, water, and a trusted adult. These circumstances can expose them to an increased risk of violence, exploitation, trafficking, and homelessness. Running away can also have long-term impacts, and it is strongly linked to adversity later in life. For instance, adults who ran away as children show a 51% increase in suicidal thoughts, 50% higher probability of not finishing school, and a 2 to 3 times higher rate of lifetime drug use. I know not everyone is going to have read this exact article, but it's common sense that this is the type of stuff that happens to kids that run away. Gov was 22 at this time. It's highly likely that he'd be aware of at least some of these risks. Him encouraging this could have very well had real horrible consequences for this young girl if she actually chose to run away. It's upsetting that she's trapped in that situation, and I understand how Gov could say something like that. It's just that it wasn't handled maturely whatsoever, which is a consistent issue with Gov's handling of serious situations, something which I'll go into more detail later. This was around the time that Gov would frequently guilt trip his audience, and Orange was subjected to a lot of it in private DMs of Gov. Here's a screenshot that Orange made of Gov, which I'm going to be reading out.
Every time, every day, I always make people feel bad. I make them think that they're terrible. I make them think that they made me feel bad. I make them think that they should stop existing. But I should feel bad. I must be an owl. I'm terrible. Me, and only me. Everything bad that's ever happened, you can blame on me. I deserve, just like I said, I deserve hate. I deserve my terrible life. I deserve Knox's pranks. I deserve Knox's probably faked up. I deserve being allergic to freaking water. I deserve being bullied. I deserve my ugly face. I deserve everything bad that's ever happened to me.
22-year-old man said this, by the way. I won't be reading out these next screenshots, but they're going to be playing across the screen. This is just like a bunch of examples of Gov being weird and guilt trippy. Here's a screenshot of Gov listing off some people in his life who've, like, nearly killed themselves, or he fought himself, or are gonna kill himself. Some of these are this, and he added one of them. I obviously censored the usernames and names because it's private, but this is a weird thing for him to do. The context of this image is that Gov had timed out Orange for a very, very long time. I can't necessarily say this is guilt trippy, but it's definitely pushy and kind of fucking weird in my opinion. Going on to the DMs between Orange and Gov, here are some DMs where Orange is asking why Gov had removed her role from his Discord server. The role was the obsessed role. In Gov's old server, he had roles based on how much the server member liked him. I remember this being a brief thing when I first joined his old server. The roles ranged from obsessed to hater, a few more roles in the middle. Here's an old screenshot of a channel Gov had in his Discord called Hate. He also used to have a playlist on his YouTube channel consisting of hate videos. Orange asked why her role was removed, worrying if Gov thought she didn't like him anymore. Gov dismisses her. Orange later states that she has to go. Gov threateningly responds by saying he's going to wait and that she can't avoid this conversation. Something that I've noticed is that Gov acts very different and quite frankly very manipulative towards these children in DMs. When I've DM'd Gov in the past, he tended to put on this innocent little persona, like he didn't know what he was doing. He did this a lot. He also put on this act on his YouTube channel as well as his Discord server. It's only really DMs where he shows his true colors. DMs towards children that are vulnerable and don't understand what he's doing and can't call him out on it. This shows that he isn't just mentally younger or ill, he's a scheming, manipulative bastard that's actively hurt young preteen girls. All children in Gov's server ranged from 9 to 14, and his closest friends were all 14-year-old girls. Remember that. After the pressure, Orange comes back, saying that she can't wait any longer. She's obviously worried about Gov's threat. Gov goes off on a rant, demanding to know why Orange is scared of him before disappearing, stating that he'll never text her again due to her late reply earlier. You can clearly see how terrified Orange is. She's full of panic because of Gov. Orange had school. Gov was guilt-tripping a 12-year-old for not responding to him while she was in school. Some other odd behavior Gov has with Orange is these screenshots. In the first one, Orange tells Gov that he needs to rest and that she'll watch some funny videos on YouTube while he's gone. Gov responds by telling her he wants to be with her right now. This irks me a bit, as it's the type of behavior that someone would have in a relationship or a very, very close friendship. Either dynamic is inappropriate for Gov to have with this minor, given A, they're a minor, and B, they don't know each other. And given the nature of this message, it seems like the child was suggesting him a coping mechanism. Children shouldn't be the one in the dynamic to tell the adult to look after themselves. There's nothing wrong with caring for someone, but given the context, it just feels off. Also, if the situation was perfectly fine and comfortable, Orange wouldn't have sent these screenshots to begin with. Something is telling her that it's wrong, and that's for a reason. These messages imply that Gov is severely attached to this and that may make them feel pressured or uncomfortable. The effect of having an adult emotionally rely on you, especially a mentally ill adult, which could kill himself at any moment, can be a detrimental impact to a child's mental well-being. This isn't an isolated incident. Gov has done this to multiple children. These kinds of people, whether they mean to or not, do fuck up kids' brains. Gov's inappropriate boundaries of Orange go beyond this. In the second screenshot that I showed earlier, Gov sent a paragraph referring to Orange as beautiful. This is textbook behavior. He's flattering and complimenting Orange to such an extent that it's creepy. This is the kind of text that one would send their partner or close loved one, not a child that you don't know. Orange even mentions it in the group chat, saying how Gov would always call people angels and it made her feel sick. Orange also mentioned that Gov was so kind and so ventish that it would make her feel guilty. She also mentioned how it was easy to feel dependent on him as he was an older guy and he was someone that she looked up to. Gov has the tendency to love bomb these minors and shower them with compliments. It seems like he intentionally picks out the ones struggling at home as a way to get them to rely on him. Abused kids are more susceptible to they're more likely to seek out comfort, especially from people older than them who they may see as a parental figure. A pattern I've noticed is that all of Gov's close friends are aged 12 to 14. They're female, they're mentally ill, lonely, or in an abusive household. He's going after his young, vulnerable female fans as that archetype of person is the most likely to give him the comfort and approval that he wants. Obviously, I don't know if he's doing this on purpose, but it's just a pattern I've observed. Gov has stated in the past that he enjoys the fact that most of his fans are female. He told me this when addressing a creepy video he made. I'm going to be showing two videos that Gov admitted to being in relation to each other. The first one is Gov blushing over the fact that some of his audience are female, and the second one is Gov blushing over the fact that some of his audience are minors. I've directly confronted Gov about this multiple times, and Yellow even found a screenshot where he talks about them in direct relation to each other.
Change.
Now, the thing is that you can always play off this video as a stupid joke. Gov says that it was, and this video hasn't been up on Gov's channel for a while, but it's the fact that even after knowing it's a bad joke and taking it down from his YouTube, he decided to repost it into his Discord server, which was made up of primarily I feel like this encapsulates how Gov acts towards his fans. He addresses their children and yet still chooses to make these weird sort of jokes about them. It's not directly pedophilic and can be interpreted as a shitty joke or a lapse of judgment, but something in your guts telling you that something is off. And something is wrong. To make matters worse, the gender and age statistics on YouTube Studio are next to each other. There's no way that Gov wouldn't have seen these statistics next to each other at the same time. In a lot of the evidence that Orange has collected, Gov mentions his brother, Knox. Knox is supposedly Gov's real dead relative, who abused him. Knox has allegedly attempted to kill Gov, drown Gov, strangle Gov, as well as forcing him to kiss him. Knox is also an alleged animal abuser. He's supposedly dead, but apparently Gov isn't sure. According to Orange, Gov stated that Knox had disappeared after Knox attempted to prank him using a cord, which resulted in the cord breaking and Knox falling somewhere, never to be found. This comes across as incredibly shifty to me. If this was actually true, then the police would have conducted an immediate investigation and his body's remains would have been found. The only time where I think his remains couldn't have been found is in the ocean, but I don't think that's realistic. And if Gov didn't report this incident to the police, then I'm sure other people would have noticed Knox's disappearance, such as their mother. This whole story sounds very made up. Knox and Gov would have had to have been somewhere high enough for him to have fallen down and disappear. Second of all, Knox would have had to have been on some kind of building or structure to attach himself to a cord. This all sounds unrealistic, especially given the fact that according to Gov, he has severe megalophobia to the point where he's scared to walk outside and see the tall buildings and sky. So why on earth would he follow his abusive brother to the top of a tall building? I don't believe that Knox is a real person, and if he is, then he seems to be incredibly exaggerated. Another reason why I believe Knox is fake is due to one of the old rules from Gov's deleted server, labeled Knox. In this rule, Gov states that if Knox somehow comes back from the dead, then his viewers aren't allowed to hack him, as he could use Gov's information in his account, which would mean that technically his audience hacked Gov. First of all, if someone disappears and is presumed to be dead, the chances of them coming back and joining your Discord server just seem unrealistic. I don't even think Knox would know about Gov's channel, consuming that he's been dead for a few years. Also, the server wasn't publicly available, only Gov himself could send invites to get people into the server. In my opinion, this is a blatant cover-up for Gov in case he ever decides to pose as Knox in his Discord server. It's such a specific rule and he couldn't have been any more obvious with it. Keep it in mind that Gov claims that Knox is 100% real, even going as far as attacking Orange for saying that Knox would want him to die. He also compared his supposedly real abusive brother to Purple, a 13-year-old girl. You can't paint a picture of a horrible, abusive man who's detrimented your mental health and then compare him to a child that's done nothing wrong, especially considering that Purple trusts Gov's every word. Another reason why I don't believe Knox is real is due to how inappropriately Gov treats the topic. Gov has continuously animated Knox in odd ways, for example this video where he's blushing at the camera and dancing, as well as this video where he's the viewer going on about some yandere bullshit.
If I can love you, no one can.
Gov animates Knox a lot, even going as far to make headcanons of him. I understand that some victims may animate or draw their abuser, but the way he does it feels so off. I've seen plenty of vent art, but this doesn't come across as a vent, it comes across as an OC edit. If you had a brother that was so horrifically abusive that he attempted to actually murder you multiple times, as well as abuse pets, I doubt you'd make a bunch of cutesy animation memes of him blushing. It's so obviously fabricated that it's almost painful. For example, here's a message where Gov goes on about Knox, stating how Knox always hurt him and never understood why as a kid Gov always cried. He then proceeds to share a weird fact about how Knox would strangle small animals such as his kitten, which was rehomed due to it. He also goes on about how Knox was usually nonchalant and serious, but would sometimes say really dirty jokes. Here's a screenshot of one of those jokes. Not very funny. It's absolutely insane to me how a small argument with a friend caused Gov to faint and fall into a coma for a few weeks, but years of repeated abuse from his brother, so severe that he nearly died, left him relatively unscathed. I suppose over time heart conditions can get worse, it just comes across as fake to me. However, despite everything, if this does happen to be true, then I am sorry to Gov. That still doesn't make comparing Purple to him okay, though. I wasn't sure where to put this in the video, but there's this really weird screenshot of Gov threatening the kids in his server. I'm just gonna play that right now.
Remember kids, Never send any real-life photos where you can see the outside stuff to a chat with Gov. He will find you. Remember, if you send that, he already knows your exact location right now, even if he didn't download the picture.
I'm not sure what the intention for this was, but I believe that maybe this is a possible reason for him asking for these kids' faces. Maybe it's so he can guilt trip them into staying with him. When I was 12 years old, I was a nervous wreck. If I had sent Gov a picture and then he said that on his server, I know I would be scared to leave him or upset him. I think this applies to most children on that server. Yes, obviously, it's hard to track someone down based on a photo alone, and it's highly unlikely that Gov could A, actually find them, and B, show up to their location. But a 12-year-old wouldn't know that. To a child, especially a child that trusts Gov, they're 100% going to believe this, and it's certain to me that Gov knows that. If it's not driven with the intent of causing worry, then it's likely a bad joke. Something I've observed is that Gov has a tendency to play off his actions as a joke. For example, asking for the IMEI number, or the weird videos he's made. His friend, who I'm going to be calling Blank, backs this up. For a bit more context, Black is the same person who sent my community post in Gov's server. Blank is an 18-year-old boy from Russia. He is Gov's friend and frequently defends him. Blank has contacted me in the past to prevent me from exposing Gov, using a variety of excuses such as Gov being mentally unstable or mentally young. Claims that Gov is harmless, and him asking for these girls' addresses is merely a joke. I disagree with these statements being jokes. They're not phrased like jokes, there's no punchline, and no one thinks it's funny. You can't excuse every single bad action you commit as a joke, or that you just didn't know any better. Mental illness does not excuse Gov or anyone, it's merely an explanation. And just because you're mentally ill doesn't mean you can't hold any accountability. I don't care if Gov is mentally younger, he is still a 23-year-old adult male. You can be an adult with childish interests. I don't care if you're 23 and want to make animation memes. Just don't bring children into your weird made-up fantasy land where you're constantly the victim. The problem isn't necessarily the fact that Gov has this weird made-up world. I don't care about that. It's the fact that he's dragging unconsenting children into these weird situations just make them uncomfortable. To clarify again, this is going to be one of the darker sections of this video, so if you're sensitive to or are recovering, I'd highly recommend skipping to another section. I want to start off by clarifying that although Gov did not openly encourage these victims into self, repeated exposure to topics in his old Discord led to a few of these victims to attempt themselves. Gov never showed scars or anything like that, but he did frequently mention doing it if any of his audience themselves. Gov would often threaten to mirror his viewers' actions. He would say that he had this notebook where he'd write down every bad action a viewer did to themselves. For example, if a viewer were to vent about himself on his server, he'd write it down, and someday, after he had piled up enough notes, he would do it all on himself, ultimately or severely himself. Now, to some people, this may come across as him attempting to stop these kids from hurting themselves, and that the only issue really was that he didn't use the right methods of comfort or respond maturely. However, Gov also stated that he'd himself if any of his viewers misbehaved or disobeyed him, which I don't think is an act of heroism in any light. Another argument which I have against this is regardless if it was a lapse of judgment or a lapse of maturity, it's still damaging. I mean, think about it this way. You're one of these victims, and you stopped hurting yourself, you listened to Gov, you're doing the best you can, and then someone in the vent channel, for whatever reason, whether that be for attention or because they're genuinely struggling, vents about how they want to himself or hurt themselves, and then Gov proceeds to go in your DMs and vent about how he has to do it because the people in his server are not listening to him. To make matters worse, his old server had an entire channel dedicated to venting, meaning that this notebook would have ended up massive. I understand that some servers have vent channels in order to keep the vents in one place. I'm not saying that vent channels are entirely a bad thing, as they can theoretically help people get advice/help. Problem was that Gov was using this vent channel to add to his notebook, and the copious amounts of venting led to some very, very young people exposed to some very serious topics. To make matters worse, Gov had a rule for this vent channel that if you didn't comfort someone who vented, you'd be banned, which meant that children as young as 10 years old were pressured into comforting teenagers, as well as being exposed to topics which they never should have been exposed to at that age. Trust me, some of the topics covered in that vent channel were extremely dark. Gov has since confessed that this notebook isn't real. He confessed that to me a while ago, claiming that it was his way of keeping his viewers safe. As you can see in the message that Gov is replying to, it contains a spoiler, which is an acronym for a really long paragraph.
Did you know that everything about violence on yourselves you ever wrote, I wrote down in a notebook, and I will repeat everything one day. This cannot be undone.
For a bit more context as to why Gov chose to expose himself and his server, this was after the first time that I had confronted him about his actions, and for whatever reason he decided to do this. I actually had completely forgotten about the notebook until it was brought up again in the group chat. Gov claimed that this notebook was a way of keeping his viewers safe, but this way of keeping his viewers safe resulted in not only Orange themselves due to the stress, but many other children also themselves. Purple had also admitted due to Gov, and Yellow has self the past but doesn't believe Gov was the cause. Orange told me about some other children who have as a result of being exposed to it in Gov's server. For example, this girl who I'll call Pink. According to Orange, Pink was let into Gov's server and was exposed to all sorts of horrible events, which resulted in her herself. She was only 10 years old. Gov had let the 10-year-old girl into his Discord server on the account that she'd only stay in his. Gov had never directly child, but he has damaged her and possibly given her lifelong issues. Gov's negligence allowed this child to access an unrestricted vent channel where she was exposed to a lot of other children talking about, and the effects of this are very apparent in her vents where she says that she wants to kill, among other things. Reminder that this girl is only 10 years old. You can't advertise a server as safe for kids and then have a vent channel where the kids talk about themselves. Now you could argue that she doesn't actually want to herself, she just wants attention from Gov, as Gov tends to respond to the vents in the vent channel. However, regardless, this is still concerning and damaging. According to Orange, another child who are referred to as Grey had supposedly even drawn of his own blood. Luckily, Purple, Orange, and Yellow are now clean, but I can't say that about some of the other children, as we don't know. Regardless, this exposure to heavy material has left a permanent scar on these kids. Is addicting. The addiction could get so severe that some people become hospitalized. You can actually contract sepsis from dirty blood, which can actually kill or disable you. It takes a severe mental and physical toll on your body and could cause you lifelong damage and consequences. Even mild will leave you permanent scars. You have to live with these marks forever. Orange described it as being contagious. I don't think Gov ever encouraged it. It was by emotional pressure. He was intense every time. Like, he would always feel guilty and bad, and the vent section was often flooded with people, so it was contagious in a way, maybe? A whole flood of children were desperate for Gov's attention, so they hurt themselves, leading to more children copying. When things are normalized, they spread, especially among young, impressionable children who may not know any better. This was my main issue with Gov, and was one of the first things I spoke to him about. I am lucky enough that I have evidence supporting these victims' claims, as before Gov's old server was deleted, I collected as much evidence as I could. The reason why I didn't bring attention to the issue sooner was because Gov promised to change and I felt bad for him, so I gave him a chance. In his messages, as I mentioned before, he comes across as very developmentally stunted, something which he claims himself. And to be completely honest, I 100% believed his undeveloped act until I talked to Dude and realized that Gov was just playing a character. And if he wasn't playing a character, then he clearly knew what he was doing more than he was letting on. I had asked Dude to provide some kind of evidence that he and Gov weren't the same person, which he absolutely refused to corroborate in. He provided zero evidence whatsoever stating that he and Gov weren't even that close. So, Dude is close enough to Gov to know his size, but not close enough to provide any text messages between them. I mean, come on, one message between your friends is not going to dox your exact location. I have plenty of out of context innocent texts of people I don't even know the last name of. You can't tell me that every single message between Dude and Gov had some kind of confidential private information. It's just not realistic. As much as I'm obviously not keen on Gov, I feel like it would be morally wrong not to add the fact that Gov did actually listen to me and make a few changes. He hasn't talked about self-harm or the notebook to his audience since I confronted him, and has deleted the vent channel as well as his old server. Despite possibly just being a fresh start, part of me believes that he deleted his old server to hide evidence, as he deleted it months after I initially confronted him. Also, I have no idea if he's actually sorry. Is he sorry because he cares, or is he sorry because he was caught? He still continues to guilt trip his audience despite this all. I'm just glad that stuff stopped, as that was arguably one of the most damaging things that he's done. Gov, whether intentionally or not, has psychologically and physically damaged these children, whether intentionally or not. He's made them uncomfortable and given them a permanent mental scar whilst knowing their ages. And for all of this, he has refused to give up his inappropriate dynamics in relationships with these minors. Actually, I correct myself. After Gov came back from his coma around a month ago now, he did actually distance himself from his young audience, claiming that only if you're 18 plus you can interact with him and join his his new Discord server. I just feel like it'd be wrong not to mention that Gov has restricted his DMs to 18+, but I don't know if he's actually doing this or if he's just saying he is. Regardless, I feel like it's a little bit too late, like a whole year too late to be doing this, and I'm not going to stop making this video just because Gov made this change. I do believe that people can change, but after seeing the stuff that he said and done to these children in private, it would be immoral to choose him over his victims. Gov may have changed, but the minds of those kids are always going to be affected. Never fucking mind, he just sent my boyfriend this message. Also, he rants about how he wants to kill himself because he can't talk to anyone minors online anymore. He said it's for attention as well, so that's something. Apparently he's saying this to my boyfriend because I'm too scary. That's probably because I'm nearly 18. Also, I think it's really coincidental how Gov decided to make this big change when he realized that I was certain on making this video and I wasn't going to change my mind. If I don't post this video, I'm never going to forgive myself for letting those girls down. There's a statement on screen from Blue and Purple about how Gov has affected them in the long run. As you can see, Gov has given them long-term damage, and he doesn't deserve to have that slide just because he's changed. I am now going to be showing some evidence of Gov's actions in his old Discord server and vent channel. A few snippets of these screenshots have already been shown on screen as I was talking, but there wasn't really much context other than word of mouth. So I want to actually show all the screenshots together so you get a bigger picture of what happened. This incident, like many, starts off relatively normal. Gov is repeatedly tagging Yellow, and some other members are also tagging them, trying to get a response from them. Gov says he'll ban Red, who is 12, for a necessary ping, and then Yellow responds of saying that everything is necessary if it's about her, obviously a joke. This then takes an odd turn where Gov claims that Yellow is disobeying him, followed by his viewers' statements. Gov then seemingly out of nowhere states that one mistake is done, one vein is gone. This is followed by the shock and confusion of his audience. Red asks what he means by that, and he says the thing that's transporting the blood, implying that he's going to kill himself. Red misunderstands Gov's statement and assumes that Gov is asking to kill them, which is concerning in of itself considering that Red was 12 to 13 at the time, asking a grown man to. Rather than choosing to ignore the comment, Gov responds of yes, okay, maybe. Gov also states that one mistake is done, one vein is gone. Your mistakes, my veins. Which is implying that he's gonna kill himself so badly that he's gonna remove Oh, that's really gross. Red is soon corrected by Purple, who states that they think if they make a mistake, then Gov will harm himself. This is followed by the panic of the server members and ended with a comment from Gov stating that he hopes Purple is wrong and tells them,
"Don't do mistakes then, and yes, I don't want to do anything like that."
I genuinely do not understand this weird masochism, sadism thing that Gov is doing towards himself and towards his viewers, but it's really creepy and outright concerning. This is one of the first bad things that I found in Gov's server, and it honestly left me a bit shocked. When confronted with this, Gov stated that he didn't know it was wrong, which if true is incredibly dangerous and shows that he isn't mentally mature enough to handle such a large audience. If you don't have the basic comprehension skills to understand why guilt-tripping children are threatening something bad, then you should not be interacting with children, end of story. Despite Gov's claims that he's changed, I still don't feel like it's morally correct to pretend this never happened, as I've stated a million times in this video. Growing comes from accountability and actually addressing what you've done, not deleting all evidence and pretending nothing ever happened. If you do that, it comes across as an apology for being caught rather than a genuine apology. The fact that Gov needed a random 16-year-old on the internet to tell him that what he was doing was depraved and morally wrong, not once but twice, is concerning. Not to mention that he only really did this big 360 when he realized I wasn't going to change my mind about the video. All of Gov's apologies have been 10% apology and 90% guilt trip. He's never publicly addressed this as intentionally kept his actions vague. This was Gov's first apology relating to the situation. It happened after I had joined the server and I confronted him in DMs about how he was being a creep and how he needed psychological help. Gov does apologize, but he doesn't address the stuff whatsoever. Here's an example of a more recent apology relating to his faked coma. In this apology, Gov apologizes for not saying that he had woken up from his coma. He stated that the reason for it was because he needed a break and that his channel was too much to handle for tiny me. Albeit a bit cringe, maybe he did actually try at a natural apology, which is what I would have said if he hadn't edited this apology. You see, this apology isn't an original. For a matter of fact, it's a heavily watered down and edited version of an original apology, which I briefly showed at the start of this video. At the end of this segment, I'll be dissecting this apology. Back to the main focus, here's another example on screen where GuvKDF threatens to harm herself as a response to Yellow's vent. Yellow vents about how she makes her cat. Gov takes this obvious event and makes it about himself, acting as if he were the victim of this child's self-harm. To make matters worse, he guilt-tripped Yellow further by saying that he feels worse than when Knox was alive. Knox, his abusive brother that attempted to kill him multiple times. To backtrack a bit, here are some things that Gov said. He accuses Yellow's vent as an attempt of hurting him intentionally. He says that she makes him feel like a useless, worthless, bad friend that's unable to help. Gov states that Yellow's actions don't only hurt her, and that she should just ignore him. He's only making everything worse. Yellow apologizes, saying that she'll stop if he feels uncomfortable and that he shouldn't worry. Gov responds by saying that he feels like he wants to delete everything and disappear forever, not uncomfortable, which is a very heavy thing to say to a 13-year-old. It's very obvious that he's being guilt-trippy and manipulative here. It's especially messed up when you consider the fact that he's a content creator that she looks up to. Think of your favorite animator or something. Imagine if they did that to you, especially if you considered them your friend. Furthermore, this isn't the only time that Gov has done something like this. This is another event that Yellow made about something which is obviously incredibly serious and terrible. Any mature adult would respond to this accordingly, but Gov decides to share how Knox also forced himself, as well as forcing him and his kitten to breathe underwater. Yellow adds to this by saying that when she was still in swimming lessons, she used to try on herself on purpose, but she couldn't. Gov does not take this well, using that phrase that was showed earlier. Gov starts rambling, telling Yellow to stop and that he doesn't want to himself again. He then proceeds to rant about how when he did after she said it was terrible. He had just started, but he had to continue. He said that he only did 3, but he couldn't do any more. Pretty graphic thing to admit to a child, especially considering, according to Gov, he didn't even do this, which in my opinion makes it worse because he was saying all this graphic shit and he didn't even do it. Another example is where 2 children, one of them being only 10 years old, were venting and Gov was making it about himself. You may argue that Gov was simply just trying to defuse the situation, as from first glance it may look that way. But even then, the guilt trip is weaseled in there. One of the children state how they view themselves as bad, and Gov, rather than being normal and saying something like, no you're not, or, not being in this conversation in the first place, he decided that he'd use this as an opportunity to self-deprecate himself. Later on, he has a conversation with Yellow, saying much worse things. For example, when Yellow adds that she thinks her classmate has a crush on her, Gov rambles about how himself after Yellow said she did, adding that even after these 5 to 7 years passed, he had forgotten what it was like himself when he didn't want to. He then adds how Yellow obviously still wants him to hurt himself due to her absent-minded response on accident. An incredibly manipulative statement. The amount of guilt-tripping that Gov does is insane. Given the context, it's pretty clear that Yellow just misunderstood Gov's words. For him to outright claim that she was encouraging him to hurt himself is actually terrible. Gov's server had such a lethal amount of children and he did nothing about it. Whether intentionally or not, GuvKDF has been exposing his minor audience to self-harm. His handling of the event channel and his server was poor and led to many minors hurting themselves in the process. Gov's negligence and immaturity has indirectly or directly caused physical and mental harm to multiple children. The next part of this video, the last part of the harm section, is going to be one of the most disturbing parts of this video. Heavy warning, nothing will be shown. In the group chat with the victims, Yellow brought up how Gov, a 23-year-old man, sent a video of a child to his Discord server. To sum up the situation, an emoji cat kid made a video of Gov's brother Knox to the sit-boy trend. I can't find an example of the sit-boy trend, which is what they were calling it in the group chat, so I assume they're meaning the down-boy trend, which is a trend where one character tells another to sit. The character sitting tends to be dressed as a dog. Gov, for whatever reason, instead of ignoring said video, he decided to comment and get angry as well. Knox is his brother, which supposedly is dead, which resulted in this child posting a video of their self-harm. You can see the first half of the video and how they're venting. I won't be showing the second half, but it cuts to a picture of a scar. Well, it's not a scar, it's a fresh wound. The so deep that the second layer of skin has been punctured. This is incredibly concerning given that they were almost an early teen. This kind of 100% scars, and it's graphic. It's horrible. Gov, instead of reporting the video, decided to post it in his Discord server, which 1, will bring even more hate to this child, which obviously has a mental illness, and 2, is going to expose little kids in his server to real self. He shows no empathy for this child and instead berates her for making fun of his supposedly real brother. I understand how receiving a video like this as a creator could be very shocking, and you may not know how to react, but this is just genuinely apathetic. It's obvious that the child in this video has some very severe mental health problems. This is why it's important as a creator to just ignore weird videos and stuff that you dislike. I made the mistake of addressing weird videos in the past, and it only led to more weird shit being created and the creators of said videos getting upset. Obviously, I never made fun of anyone's self but as a creator, you're going to receive weird videos that people make of your characters. Gov's handling of the situation was beyond appalling. His immaturity is dangerous to the point where he can barely see right from wrong. Is this completely his fault? No, I understand why he was shocked, but this is disgusting, and he needs to be held accountable. Despite being an empathetic tiny baby, Gov is nothing but apathetic towards his audience self. Well, at least to those that he isn't close with. Yellow claimed that Gov would complain to her that some people, kids, in his server started because of him and that he did nothing. Orange backs this up as well as blue. GuvKDF is homophobic. He claims this is due to his religion, Christianity, and he has harassed fans in DMs before for being gay. There is a massive difference between not supporting someone and respecting their identity, and downright calling someone disgusting for their identity and humiliating them, especially if that person is someone who looks up to him. In the past, I have openly stated that I'm LGBTQ to Gov, and he didn't react with anywhere near this amount of disrespect. If he can choose to stay quiet about his opinions of my identity in front of me, why can't he respect his young audience identities as well? Is it because he knows I tell? Is it because he knows his young audience is more susceptible to his opinions? He clearly understands what he's saying is bad. The topic is brought up in the group chat when Yellow mentioned how GuvKDF had a problem with her pansexuality. Blue mentions how she remembers, and Orange goes over about how she vaguely remembers Purple talking about it, in which Yellow confirms. Here are the DMs between a 12 to 13-year-old Yellow and a 22 to 23-year-old GuvKDF. The conversation starts off with Yellow, confused as to what she did wrong. Gov responds of how she did nothing wrong, but society has broken her mind. Yellow, obviously upset, responds of how it's not about society and that she just likes females and other genders more because of her past experiences of males, which has led to her being scared of dating men. In response, Gov goes on this absolutely heinous rant. I've tried to summarize it, but it's so unbelievably unhinged that no amount of summary can even begin to convey the insanity that this message produces. So I'm gonna be reading it out.
Volume warning.
They force you that it's right and acceptable. You'll start to mistake normal, simple love to people with sexual or close relationship. That's also why people just ship two characters who just look at each other. It's not that love feeling, you just love person and that's all. But because of the sheet, you'll start thinking that it's more, and it's getting disgusting. You're dirty-minded for thinking something more, when it's actually not. It really disappoints me to live in the same time with this existing. I really don't understand it. All my life I've been told that it's bad, disgusting, and they treat a sin in my religion. How the heck could I not hate it because of the way I'm raised? You know I can't do anything with that, come on, call me, and I would expose me on the surface when I'm bad. I'm stupid and bad, I know. I didn't even say you were disgusting. I said that thing is.
Yellow, who is also a Christian, responds to Gov by saying how God will still love you no matter what your gender is. Gov yells at her and states that she's mistaking her feelings. Yellow says that she's sorry, and Gov says no, society should be sorry for making her think wrong things. He states that he follows his religion no matter what, and that he knows she hates him. Yellow states that she doesn't hate Gov and that she was simply hoping for his support and acceptance. Gov yells at her saying, bro, what the heck, support? They all tell about it like it's something normal and common, but at the same time, you tell about it like you need support? Like it's something special and not normal? Like, what the heck? Why do they contradict themselves so much? This part is the most stupidest. I hate this most in a lot of stuffs, by the way. Those dramas, I don't like them much. Yellow is clearly tired of the conversation, responding with a simple okay. Gov then goes ahead to make this batshit crazy point stating how, if it's normal, then why the heck do you need support?
Like, for example, normal people have two arms, but some have one. Cause illness or lost in war, IDK. Normal people don't need support for the normalists, right?
He rants for a bit more before finishing his point by stating yet again, he doesn't hate Yellow, he hates her identity, calling it a thing. Listen, if Gov doesn't support gay people, then that's fine, I don't care. But they're still people and they deserve respect like everyone else. How he responded to Yellow is immature and downright sickening. To label her as broken and dirty-minded for loving someone of the same gender is a full-on immoral thing to say to someone. You can't shame children for their identity and label it as disgusting and he should not be degrading a core part of who they are simply because he believes it's sinful. Not everyone is Christian, just as not everyone is homosexual. You can't preach that you follow your religion no matter what when you fail to follow the core part of loving thy neighbor. Absolutely nobody in this situation is asking Gov to give LGBTQ+ people special treatment. All most gay people want is decency and respect and to be treated like a real fucking human being. Nobody wants a core part of themselves to be labeled as disgusting and wrong, especially not by someone they look up to. This isn't the only time that Gov has been ruthlessly homophobic towards a fan. In the group chat, Purple mentioned how Gov was also mean to a person who I'll be calling Sage. Sage apparently felt more like a guy and changed their pronouns to he, him, which resulted in Gov shaming them. And due to the shame, Sage changed their pronouns back to she, her, in which Gov responded by saying, wow, now you're real you. Sage asks what he means by that, to which Gov responds by spamming a bunch of immature nonsense. Here are some more screenshots that Purple sent between Sage and Gov. This is a few days before Sage changed their pronouns back to she, her. Sage starts off by saying that they weren't comfortable when Gov sent a picture of their DMs and that they felt that they were being problematic and they wanted to leave the server. Sage is obviously feeling ashamed of themselves, and Gov responds by saying that Sage isn't problematic and that if they want to leave, then obviously their aim is not only to make him sad, but to also make Purple, Sage's friend, sad. Sage calls Gov's weird guilt trippy behaviour out, saying that it sounds like guilt tripping, to which Gov responds by saying,
"What should I do today?"
in which, judging by Sage's reaction, implies that Gov is going to hurt himself, which is where the screenshot's cut off. This act of guilt trip by Gov is just purely vengeful. It's not like he threatened to hurt himself because Sage did. He threatens to hurt himself because Sage called him out on his bullshit. This whole interaction shows how Gov is extremely manipulative, and that his threats of self-harm isn't only to keep his viewers safe from hurting themselves, it's an act of manipulation. Blue adds another example of Gov's homophobia, showing a screenshot of Gov saying "how nah" in response to someone's they-them pronouns. This is the behaviour I'd expect from a 12-year-old boy, not a 23-year-old man. Also, here's a few more examples of Gov's homophobia on his old Discord server. It can be excused as jokes, but given we know his stance on the LGBTQ, it's not completely innocent. This is a bit of an edit, but I'm not entirely sure of Gov's stance to gay people now. He's being very gay for someone who's homophobic. Here's a video where he kisses himself, like with the tongue. Also, Gov, as 10, made a post on his community tab where he's holding a pride flag in the colours of Gov. Also, the caption is, "Gov is mine!" Gov's avatar looks like a deformed horse for some reason. Sometimes Gov draws Oz as a woman though, so I'm not really sure if this is gay or not. Either way, it's still really fucking weird. This next section will be going over how and why Gov is a groomer. Throughout this entire situation, I struggled a lot with forming my opinion on whether Gov is a groomer or not, as he's never expressed anything downright 100% sexual. Gov always has this strange, plausible deniability, and that makes him really hard to categorize as a groomer. Despite this, I undeniably believe that his actions are dangerous and predatory, and if this was to have continued, then who knows what he could have done. Whether Gov chooses to admit to it or not, he has left a horrible, undeniable impact on multiple young lives. Recently, Purple went over how, due to the stress of Oz, she genuinely believed that Oz, or 10, had the ability to change her. This was because Gov was constantly ranting about Oz and going on about him as if he were real. Maybe Oz is real to Gov, but it doesn't mean that he should terrorize fucking Purple with it. Purple states that even to this day, she feels a little bit nervous looking at her own body, out of fear that Oz can see it too. Another weird thing that Gov did is that he drew Purple changed by Oz. Gov has since deleted the image, but Purple says that it gave her nightmares for weeks and went on to describe the image. The description given is incredibly unnerving and not something that's okay to draw of a random child. Purple and the other girls in this group chat were under such a severe amount of pressure because of Oz that it caused them actual mental illness. I would argue that this is not only dangerous, but it's emotional grooming. The amount of pressure that Gov put on these girls is unacceptable. My partner Gada will be covering the remainder of this section, as he's more capable of recognizing the red flags and patterns of behavior that groomers have, given that he's fallen victim to these types of people in the past. So I'll be passing on to him.
Gov is playing a persona. He has been grooming and manipulating previous members up until now, as well as other server members when he is still active. Using a persona, so it's exclusive. But I will explain that in the subcategory of this soon. There is too much to uncover to the point it gets confusing if I set everything back to that. So let me start here. Up until this point, I'm guessing that Becky has already mentioned this. Gov plays a persona, one that's immature, childish, weak, and quote-unquote like a crybaby. To get a better understanding of this, take a look at his old description, as well as some screenshots. Here you can see it again. Easy to use, weak, crybaby. This is disgusting. Quick reminder, Gov is way smarter than he acts on. He knows exactly what he's doing with his actions. He has proven that he has the mental capacity to run a whole server, setting up things and defend himself. He is a grown man playing a character. What he does is the following. Gov purposely makes himself look harmless with these descriptions and with the way he talks in, acts, and interacts with others. At some point of this, he claimed that the little kids in the private group that he was in were more mature than him, making the kids feel as if they have more control than Gov does. He's less mature and smart, therefore harmless. So, according to their reasoning, Gov can hurt them. Excuses. Strategy commonly used by groomers is to make themselves appear as some sort of leader, someone in power and control to create a false sense of security. Gov never did this, though he did something much more difficult to understand. In another, much more complex way, since his main persona is a crybaby, and less smart and mature than the actual kids, he used excuses, such as not, the multiple voices he claimed to hear, and other completely made-up people in his life to make him do and say certain things, excusing it all to not take accountability, and so ruin his weak, crybaby persona. An example would be when Dude took control of his account and started to act differently than Gov usually would towards everyone, Dude included. Dude said swear words, something like Gov was heavily against, the sole fact being another thing that drove me to think that Gov was switching between characters to his liking interview. Now, Gov has been meticulously building this persona in the server and in DMs to the point that the kids who did DM generally started believing the fact was just immature and helpless. This was part of his plan. After he set up that personality, he started to put himself in danger and start faking accidents, suicide attempts, and his death, so many times, repeatedly, causing fear and mental torture to these kids over and over. This is a tactic used by groomers and manipulators. Constant anxiety results in the victim constantly thinking about Gov, which also results in empathy and forced care for Gov, as the victim believes that he is generally in danger and about to die. Gov traumatizes victims with constant threats and lies to bond them to him, causing them a fear that he wouldn't live until the next day, and that he was always in danger. The tactic works like this. Gov makes a threat and says that he's going to die or something bad is going to happen to him. Gov then disappears for hours, days, or weeks. Gov comes back, after leaving the victim to panic without any knowledge on his current situation, well-being, and so on. And then, in the final part, Gov uses the panic that has turned into gladness that he's back, and starts to comfort his victim, using their moment of vulnerability to his advantage, like here. These following screenshots prove that Gov was doing the exact strategy I just broke down. Also, another thing. By doing these things, his action of quitting, leaving, and updating his YouTube, Gov was trying to get sympathy, get people to feel bad.
This section of the video will quickly go over unorganized, weird, or off-putting behavior that Gov has possessed. This is in no specific order. It's basically all the stuff that I couldn't fit in or didn't know where to categorize or was found out after I recorded most of the video. In this screenshot, a user in Gov's server vents about how she was Gov responds by calling the pedomer, which is a mix of the word and potamer. If you don't know who that is, Potamer was a Roblox YouTuber who was accused of 12-year-old girl. This is a completely tone-deaf statement for Gov to make. Not only that, but the user states that they're venting to them and that they didn't know what to do. Gov responds by saying, "Wait, I keep on venting to y'all," to which the user responds of how it doesn't bother them anymore. This shows that Gov is self-aware of what he's doing. In this paragraph, a deleted user, presumably the same person who was shown previously, vents about being in denial that 7 people have hurt her. Gov responds saying that she can always talk to him. The deleted user gets upset, stating how when she tried to talk to him, all he said was sorry, and that she feels bad because she needs to try and justify some of the sick things that Gov did. Right at the beginning of the situation, even before the victims came forward, I actually did ask Gov what this was about, and he says that he doesn't remember, but he thinks it was about him hating himself, which to me comes across as a cover-up. In this screenshot, Gov makes a joke upon sending a character AI bot of him being shipped with Knox, who's his dead brother. In these screenshots, Gov sends an image of some ship art between him and a 13-year-old drawn by someone in his community. He sends this in his public server, which is weird in and of itself, and to make matters worse, he states that the 13-year-old is cute, but he wouldn't react like that. Also, he adds that they're both men, which is obviously the problem here, not the fact that this is genuinely endangering a child. Another thing is that Gov frequently asks to adopt his server members, some of them even calling him dad. In this screenshot, Gov tells a user in his server that they're not autistic because you get diagnosed with autism from the age of 0, which is just straight up untrue. The earliest you can get a child diagnosed for autism is age 2. Also, if their mother is saying that they show signs, then it's pretty strange to dismiss it. I understand that self-diagnosis can be bad, especially if it's through Google and TikTok, but their own mother is saying they've shown signs from a young age. In this screenshot, Gov roleplays himself crying because he finds Pink adorable and says that she doesn't deserve to be seen by someone like him. Pink, reminder, is 10 years old. In this screenshot, Gov claims that his audience makes jokes worse than an average 30-year-old, and that he doesn't even swear, meaning that his actions are completely appropriate. Gov states that age doesn't matter, actions do. A minor vents about not eating lunch for 3 days. Gov responds by stating, "You really like to hurt me that much." Gov quotes a server member stating, "Gov is dead, day is great." A user who I'm gonna call Lilac responds saying that they can be Gov now since he's dead. Gov, for whatever reason, decides to respond to this by calling them a Lilac later goes on to add how she feels depressed. Gov responds by saying, "Oh no, did it again," for a time one day, implying that her mere expression of emotion caused him harm. Yellow freaks out and states that Lilac was probably joking. Gov berates Yellow, telling her to stop lying and that he deserves it. Gov then manipulates Yellow by stating he's going to be silent forever. Gov then goes on a rant stating how it was his fault for Lilac being depressed and that he's the worst person to ever exist. Yellow tells Gov that she doesn't want anyone to feel lonely and sad. Gov responds by saying he doesn't feel lonely and sad. He feels like he wants to in the nearest lake. Lilac states that she feels miserable. Here's an old fake screenshot Gov made of him and Knox talking, which is obviously an attempt at manipulating his audience. Here's a video on screen where Gov remakes a fan's content. At the end of the video, he adds how the fan's original video is much better and that his is horrible, an obvious act of intention seeking and compliment fishing. Here's another video where one of Gov's haters is bullying a fan before Gov grabs the hater, presses them against the wall and grabs a weapon. The hater exclaims, "Please don't kill me," in fear, and Gov responds by saying no. He grabs the weapon and places it in the hater's hands before stabbing himself repeatedly, forcing the hater to stab him. The hater is visually uncomfortable and terrified and yelling for Gov to stop, whilst Gov states, "Don't lie, you're enjoying this, aren't you?" To make matters worse, the hater and the fan are visually smaller, which could imply that they're minors, but this might not be the case as Gov could have just made himself taller. I don't want to read this out loud, but Gov made a short slideshow of Oz going inside of him / possessing him while he's telling him to stop. It comes across as fetishy to me, but I'm unsure. Here's an alternate version of Gov that Gov draws where he's all mutilated and terrified. This also comes across as fetish content to me. Another thing to add on is that whilst terrorizing Purple with the Oz stuff, Gov would Photoshop images of eyes onto his arm and send it to her. Also, apparently Gov forced Purple to sing for him, and she was scared that if she didn't, she'd be changed by Oz, which I think is really weird. Thank you so much for watching the entire video because this message is very important to get out. Please do not reach out to GuvKDF as that's not going to help anyone and it can put yourself at risk. He's an incredibly unstable, mentally ill individual and should be avoided.